Call to order. Pardon me?
For quorum?
Well, let me see. Why don't you take
Roll call?
a roll call, please, and we'll find out.
Borboom? Breitling? Campbell? Grubb?
Here.
Hendrickson? Judd? Manju? Olson?
Yes.
Peterson? Corey? Sherling?
I'm here.
Strand? Zimmerman?
Here.
Didn't forget you this time.
Wow. So is there a quorum? Kind of sounds like not. No. Well, that's disappointing. I hope they all got the memo. Or maybe they're wandering around next door somewhere.
No,
but,
that could be too.
well, we'll go ahead and get started. If we have to make any actions, we'll just have to delay them. But we've got lots of information to go through. So thank you all for being here that are here. Appreciate it. You got the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes from last month's meeting. And you know, I guess technically we really can't approve these minutes either, can we?
Right.
So we'll just have to approve them next time unless we get more people showing up here. So, property acquisition program, item number 4. Eric, is that you?
Yeah, in your packet, you'll see item B, there's 2 maps. I believe it's printed front, back. This is kind of a status update light. If you may recall from years ago, we had produced a status report that showed these maps along with some additional detail following the maps that showed kind of squares representing the number of parcels for each property. We're still working on getting those, the full status report produced, but for this month, I wanted to just refresh you that this is the first couple pages of our regular status report. And so the first page just generally shows the key areas of the project where we need to buy land, diversion channel phase 1, 2, 3, the southern embankment, the 3 different control structures, inlet control structure, wild rice control structure, Red River control structure. There's still a few parcels that we need to obtain in Oxbow. And then, of course, the upstream mitigation area and some in-town levies. And so just kind of gives an overall snapshot. And then on the second page, the back side of that, the second map there, you'll see a status of acquisitions. You can see a lot of colors up on the north end of the diversion channel. Green is good. Green means we own it. Purple means we have a purchase agreement. We're just waiting for those. Blue is in negotiation. And then there's some other colors on there that you can see on the legend. You'll note that the southern half of the diversion channel is in this orangish tan color, and that represents appraisal pending. We have the appraisal RFP that was received recently, and working on the contracting actions for that. We'll cover that a little bit later in the agenda. So anyway, if there's any questions on that appraisal report, let us know.
Any questions on the acquisitions? Then do we now have a quorum? Wonderful. Thank you. So I'm just going to back up to item number 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. If I could get a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. And then on to item number 5, appraisal services, number C.
So in your packet, you'll notice item number C, which is a 3-page summary. The appraisal services RFP was issued back in January. We received 8 proposals from 8 different firms in early February. Had a review team that met all of the, reviewed all of the appraisal submittals and made a recommendation, which you see here is the first page is just kind of summary of who submitted what. The second page shows the scoring, the criteria, and then the recommendations. These recommendations were made to the Cass County Water Resource District at their meeting in early February. And the Cass County Joint Board approved the recommendations, and now we're moving forward with the actual contracting actions. And so typically, contract actions would come through the Finance Committee with a little bit of visibility, Finance Committee of the Diversion Board. Given that this RFP was, I guess, fairly transparent and we had a pretty good review process, the Finance Committee wanted the Land Committee to sort of give their head nod to the recommended contracting actions and then basically authorize us to work directly with the Cass County Joint Water Resource District on these actual contracts. So the third page there shows that we are recommending master service agreements with all 8 of the appraisal firms, and then task orders with 3 of the appraisal firms for the first 5 appraisal packages. So Compass Land Consultants would be awarded task order number 1. Crown Appraisals would be awarded appraisal package 1 and appraisal package 2. And then Integra Realty Resources would be awarded appraisal package 4 and appraisal package 5. So if there's questions, be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'd be sort of looking for a blessing from this group to proceed with these contract actions through the Cass County Joint Water Resource District.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the appraisals? Roger, did you have any concerns when it went through the Water Resource District?
Oh, the only question I had was, what does it mean for the other firms? Are they just kind of hanging out there, or what? And Eric answered that. Maybe you want to answer that.
Yeah, sure. So, as you note in the recommendations here, there were 8 firms that submitted, and we felt like all 8 of them were qualified for providing work on the project. And so that means, that's why we're recommending the master service agreement with each one. Since these first 5 packages were for the diversion channel, we know that, we know that there are other appraisal needs across the scope of the project, whether that's the southern embankment or the upstream area. And so our expectation is that we will be utilizing all 8 of these firms at some point or another. Over the last month or 2, we've been getting a number of phone calls from people that are anxious to move forward. Those people, that's outside of the diversion channel. And so I anticipate very soon that we will be putting together appraisal package 6, perhaps 7, perhaps 8. And then we'll be asking some of these other firms to consider contracting for those future appraisal packages.
Any other questions? Well, it looks like you guys did a very thorough job on this.
I was pleased. I was real pleased with the response. So.
Great. Well, we're eager to get going on it. And when would this begin?
So our goal is to have all the contracting actions with these appraisal firms ready for the March 14th Cass County Joint Water Resource District Board meeting. And so we've been developing the draft documents, getting them to the legal team for review. And once that's through legal, we'll get it to the appraisal firms for their blessing and try to get it in front of the Water Resource District by the March 14th meeting.
Great. Okay. Then you need a motion to recommend this to the full board?
I think it probably just could go from here to the Cass County Joint Board.
Okay.
Is my understanding.
So you want a motion then or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Eric?
the only thing I might add is this RFP was issued by the Cass County Water Resource District with the intention of hiring appraisers for work in North Dakota, but we recognize that some of these firms are well qualified. In fact, several of them are, sort of Minnesota firms, and they're well qualified to do work in Minnesota. And so as the Minnesota acquiring entity is established and formed, we may be able to dip into this same pool. In fact, I'm hoping that we'll be able to dip into this same pool of appraisers to do work on both sides of the river.
Great. Okay, then, I think just a general, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and motion carries. Yeah, and we'll go on to item number 6, lands outreach. You can see that there are letters, and I will let Eric talk about those as well.
We've been working on a pretty significant lands outreach campaign for quite some time. In fact, I was going back looking at some of our files, and I realized that the first rough draft of the letters were produced back in 2017. And then we went round and round on whether we should send those out or not. And I guess all the ups and downs of the project, we're at a point now where we are moving forward with a lands outreach campaign. In your packet here is a sampling of the letters. There's actually 8 different packets of letters that are going out to people who own property in various locations of the project. The northern part of the channel, the southern part of the channel, the embankment in North Dakota, the embankment in Minnesota, the upstream impacted area in North Dakota, the upstream impacted area in Minnesota, and then the city of Christine and the city of Wolverton. And so that collectively is 8 separate packets. Each one has a different map. Each one has some slight differences in the letter. This letter mailing packet is at the printer as we speak. It's expected to go out in the mail on Friday to land in people's mailboxes, hopefully Monday. And then we've got a team in place and kind of a tracking system in place to receive the phone calls. There's phone numbers for both our office as well as the Water Resource District office. And we've been in contact with Carol Lewis at the Water Resource District about being prepared to answer phone calls. I think we're in a pretty good position here. If you recall, there was an assessment district mailing that went out a few years back, and that was 40,000 mailings. This one in particular is between 500 and 600. I think it's about 550. And so a big mailing, but in the grand scheme of things, we've handled bigger in the past. And so I guess we're excited about this. We're excited about being able to provide some information to the property owners. I think we'll probably get a wide range of reactions. Some people will be thankful, I presume, that we're providing some information. Other people will, of course, be upset with the project, and I guess we'll handle all of the above. So didn't have any action for this group, but of course wanted you and hear everybody. I guess many of you are part of drafting this, and so appreciate all your help on that, and happy to take any questions if there are any.
Yes, Mike.
Letters look fine. Was there an approval process for these letters, or
A what process?
approval, or it just come straight from you?
No. This, so starting back in 2017, we had some rough drafts, but this latest version of the letter has been reviewed by the mayors, Mary, the Cass County Joint Board, the County Commission, the executive directors. We had the City of Fargo's PR communications expert review, our land agents, who are people out in the field, meeting with people at their kitchen tables. They've reviewed the letter. I could probably go on and on. It's been probably one of the most reviewed, if not the most reviewed letter that's been sent. I'm not suggesting it's perfect, but I guess just to give you a sense of the sort of level of review that has been done on these letters, it's been pretty thorough.
No, they're good letters. I just want to know input. So it sounds like you had a lot of input from people in the field, and then.
Yep.
Okay.
And I would just add that I sent a letter to the Fargo Forum the other day talking about this mailing that's going out, kind of giving people a heads up. This is one of the things that we have been criticized the most for, especially in the last year, is that nobody contacts me. I haven't heard from anybody. Well, we haven't been able to move forward with land acquisitions because we were tied up in the permitting process. But now we can move forward with them, and we have already purchased some property. Some landowners have been waiting a long, long time to get on with their lives. So we're glad to be able to do that. And I think this will, as Eric said, you know, there are obviously going to be some people that aren't happy about this at all. But I think that there's going to be quite a few that are really going to be glad to hear what their impacts are, and maybe that they're not going to be impacted to the degree that they thought they were going to be, because I think there's just a lot of rumors out there. So the sooner people can meet individually with land agents and figure out what their options are, I think that it's that anxiety and fear of the unknown that, you know, this can help put to bed.
And, you know, that was my concern too, if we had input from the field or from, you know, the people who are being affected, and it sounds like you've had some of that, so thanks.
Any other comments or questions regarding this?
Just that the Water Resource District office is prepared, you know, to take calls, and they're very, very willing to take the calls.
Good, great.
We're ready.
We appreciate that. Okay, then, item number 8, Farm Impacts Working Group, item F.
I might have Joe come help me with this a little bit. A lot of the content here is some of the good work that Joe's been working on. But maybe just for a little bit of history, several years ago, we established a subcommittee to this land committee for ag-related issues. And that ag policy subcommittee has met, I don't know, maybe a dozen times over the last several years. It's been a while since we've met. Some of the early meetings I thought were pretty helpful, and we had kind of a wide-ranging group, kind of a big and growing group at times. But Roger maybe could back me up on this, but we had discussions about does flooding impact the quality of the soil? Does it impact growing risk of disease, and a variety of other sort of real specific ag things. And we got some good feedback from that group. Talked about crop insurance, talked about a variety of different things. Towards the, I guess maybe a couple of years ago, when this group was sort of winding down, lawsuits were in place, and I think what we found is that the effectiveness of this group was really hamstrung by couple things, maybe perhaps the size and perhaps the positions that people were taking in court battles and things. And so I think we're not proposing to quit the ag policy subgroup, but what we're really proposing here is something a little bit different, and maybe I'd pitch it to Joe to explain a little bit about this Farm Impacts Working Group proposal.
Helps if you turn it on, as it happens. Here we go. This would be a different group with a different formation, and I think the mission maybe overlaps slightly with the Ag Policy Working Group, but as Eric mentioned, sometimes when you have a very large group, things can get off track, and we've got some pretty serious work to do in front of us. We have a robust mitigation plan. It's, I think, a couple hundred pages that considers a lot of different aspects of how we are going to mitigate impacts to properties as well as the owners and the lives out there. But the execution of that plan is another story. And there's a lot of granularity to how that plan might be executed. And I think that's where getting the feedback, and not only feedback, but really having a down in the weeds discussion with people that are actually going to be impacted by this will yield a bit more insight for us, as well as just add validity to our program. And especially it's one thing to write a policy, but how does it actually work? And there's some of this where as you know, most of you have probably experienced, the rulemaking process is really where the meat is. The policy can say one thing, but it's in the rulemaking, it's in the execution and the administration of the policy. And so with a much smaller group, we would have the time to dive into the details of certain things. It's easier to keep a smaller group on track. And I think one of the things that could be spelled out a little bit better with the group after meeting the first time would be setting some pretty solid goals, clear objectives that we want to achieve. And that I think will also help to keep the group on track. The other thing about a working group is the venue would be smaller and more private. So people wouldn't feel like they need to posture or do some grandstanding because they know their neighbors are all looking over their shoulder. My hope is that we can have the hard discussions with this group, and that in turn makes it a little bit easier when we get out into the field and actually have to apply some of this stuff, when our right-of-way agents or our elected officials or our diversion managers and consultants get asked, hey, how come you guys won't do this? The answer would be a lot more clear that we talked about that, we examined all of the angles, and this is what we arrived at. And if we do that in a small group with people that are actually impacted, I think that adds a lot of credibility. One other thing to mention there would be that we would seek to keep this small but also proportionate. So for instance, if we've got an impact in Clay County that's half or a third or a quarter of the impact that it is in Cass County, or a 10% impact in Wilkin County, we would want the group to reflect that. Personally, I would like to have it also reflect a farmer that may be retiring or retiring soon and is thinking about succession, and also a young farmer who will continue to farm in the staging area, somebody who's got an interest that extends beyond just getting the project built or making it go away, but actually how are we going to operate after this is done, and really looking at things in a great level of detail.
Questions? When do you plan to begin this?
Soon, straight away. I mean, we've got questions that need answers, and I think feedback is, on things that are rolling out. Or as Eric mentioned about this landowner mailing, this is a huge step. This is really us getting our arms all the way around the land impacts on this project. So I would envision that it starts immediately with the first meeting here prior to spring planting.
Great, thank you. I can certainly see, just from the questions that we're having regarding the letters being mailed out, that this could be really timely and important to get rolling on. Okay, thank you then, Joe. And then, did I miss upstream mitigation plan? I'm having a little hard time with our new packets here. Is there an item E?
Yeah, it's maybe part of this mailing, but we can certainly talk about it as part of the mailing packet. I guess before we leave this farm impacts thing,
Sure.
if there's, I guess, we put it in here as kind of a recommendation to go ahead and, do this, and I guess if there's maybe a head nod from this group that it seems like it makes sense, that would be helpful for our
Certainly.
purposes, I guess.
Certainly. Well, we can certainly make a motion to that effect if someone is willing to do that. Thank you, Roger. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, Kevin.
I just want to point out Joe, in item number 3, key characteristics in the group, and item number 2 under that, it refers to working sessions will be organized and led by the PMC. The group may serve as an advisory body to the Land Management Committee and the Cass County Water Resource District. I think you should probably also add the MCC JPA.
Gladly.
Great catch. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, then, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then let's back up and look at that upstream mitigation. It was item number E, but I don't see an E
Yeah,
in here, but I
well-
think it's the second to the last page. maybe?
Right, yeah, we can use the second to the last page here, so it's this map, that has the map. And then on the back side of that map, you'll see some definitions. This is part of the mailing that is going out to the upstream property owners. And I guess maybe wanted to explain this map a little bit further for this group. This is another one of those items of the project that has gone through a couple rounds of iteration. This map is reflective of the conditions from the DNR's permit. At least our best interpretation of that, and we've had some dialogue with the DNR in that regard. And so, in many ways, this simplifies the process compared to previous versions, which I understand it may not look very simple. But what you see on this map here is there's, from a land mitigation standpoint, there's two different pools or two different areas. And then from a structure mitigation standpoint, there's commensurately two different structure mitigations, depending on where the structures are located. And so for the land, again, you can see this tan color, tan orangish color. That's what is being called the operating pool. And the operating pool is something that was defined by the Corps of Engineers. It's necessary for the safe operation of the project. And so that's the basically volume of water that will be required to safely operate the project and have the protection that it provides. Some of the DNR conditions in their permit, and the Water Commission as well, has recognized that we are building essentially a dam, and that follows dam safety standards. And so then we get into what's considered the maximum pool, and that's this purple, light purple color. The maximum pool is defined by what's called the PMF, or probable maximum flood. And so that's really kind of NOAA's flood event. And this would be the area where you would have depth difference or impacts caused by a PMF flood event with the project in place. And so you can see in some areas it's just a little bit on the fringes, and then in other areas in this, Wolverton Township area, there's an area where it's only a couple tenths or a couple inches of water in this area in Wolverton Township, south of Comstock, but nonetheless, in accordance with the DNR's provisions, those are areas that would be impacted. And so for the tan color, we would be buying a flowage easement on those lands that will prohibit all development. And so it'll be effectively like a floodway. In the purple area, we will be buying a flowage easement that has restrictions on development, but development could occur. It would just be like within floodplain rules where you have to elevate the structure above the flood elevation. And so the flowage easement will have that distinction whether you're in the tan or whether you're in the purple. And then the structures, the red dots are residential structures in the tan area. And so those are structures that would effectively be in the floodway. We are obligated to buy and remove those structures. And then the yellow dots are Category 2 structures. Those are located within the purple maximum pool area. And we are obligated to offer a buyout if they're impacted, but we're also able to consider alternative mitigation, such as elevating the structure, such as maybe doing some flood proofing, perhaps ring levees in certain areas, if that makes sense. And so a lot of details going on with this map. And then the second page, recognizing that that is a lot of information, the second page tries to add some details and some definitions to what I just explained. So defining the operating pool, defining the maximum pool, defining Category 1 structures and Category 2 structures. A lot of information there. I know Bob and Greg Thielman in the audience, Nathan Borboom and Jason Benson were all involved in helping draft some of this. And so a lot of engineers, But it's a complex thing, and I guess happy to answer questions if you have it.
So, go ahead.
My question is in regards to the properties within the dam shadow. I noticed on these mitigation maps that those properties aren't highlighted. Are we still in the process of determining which properties will need buyouts? And if so, have those people been included in the mailings or not?
One of the conditions of the DNR's permit was one of the, statements, in their permit was a recommendation to limit future development within the shadow. I believe it was a quarter mile downstream of the dam. And that stems from, potential dam breach analysis. We've had some follow-up with the DNR, and I know the Buffalo Red group had some questions of the DNR about that point. It's our understanding that that's a recommendation primarily for future development. It is my understanding, that Bob, maybe you can help me on this as well, that we're not required, and they haven't necessarily asked us to buy out existing structures that are impacted in that zone. And it's really a zoning issue more than anything else. And so I guess to get back to your specific question, we did not include any of those properties in the mass mailing. I think as the final design of the embankment is completed, we'll have to be in contact with these property owners. Recognize that many of the parcels of land that are impacted by the embankment footprint are not, small parcels. They're, 40-acre parcels and things. And so we'll be in contact with the majority of those property owners just by default because a portion of their parcel is impacted.
Great. Other questions? Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Roger, do you have an update for us?
I think we kind of hit some of the, what's the first item we had here?
Appraisal, yeah.
Get those, and tomorrow for our meeting, we have some,
I think there'll be a couple purchase agreements that'll be bringing forward to the joint board tomorrow. We're one purchase agreement tomorrow, so yeah, moving forward.
okay.
Great, thank you. And item 10, the Minnesota JPA, I don't know who wants to cover that, if Kevin does?
Yeah, I can handle it. I think the document itself is getting closer to its final draft form for us to review. I do want to point out that we did send out that invitation to the Buffalo Red River Watershed Board to be a part of that, and they did vote to have a member serve on that group, but not a member as an entity. So they did vote in favor of having somebody serve on the MCC JPA board.
Great. And when will that be finalized?
My understanding is you're hoping to get that, the document reviewed. I know we have some comments and things as well, but get that reviewed and placed on your council and commission meetings, hopefully in the next month or so?
I would certainly hope that, as that gets ready to go, that we meet again as what we refer to as our Minnesota members of this group to give a final review to it, and along with our technical people to make sure that everything's covered there. So obviously with these letters going out, the sooner that we can complete that process too, the better, so that there's a clear understanding of what that board would look like. So,
Do we know if we have any hardship landowners or property owners in Minnesota that have been contacting us? Or
I know of none as of now. I know that we've dealt with a couple of hardship cases in Minnesota already in the past, but I don't know that there's any that have applied for hardship.
Not for hardship, but there have been a handful of Minnesota property owners who have reached out and asked to move forward sooner than later. And so I agree with you that I think in the meantime, the Cass County group is willing to entertain those voluntary acquisitions. But I agree with you that getting the Minnesota acquiring entity established will be a benefit for Minnesota property owners.
Great. Okay, then, is there any other business? Covered quite a bit here. Then I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you.